unless you've been living under a rock, I don't know how you could not be excited for this. This is a pretty crazy thing we're having come into the whole foam dart ecosystem. This is a $25 package from BuzzBee that you can find at your local Target. That's where I found the price point for this one. This one was sent to me by BuzzBee. Unfortunately, they didn't send me any information on how much this stuff costs, but I did find this at Target.com. And if you look around, you can probably find it at Kmart and Walmart as well, since I've seen both these kinds of blaster suits, not the specific thermal heat-seeking ones, at anywhere else. Anyway, the point is, this $25 package comes with a pump-action clip-fed, and yes, I'm calling it clip-fed because it calls it a clip right there and on the back of the box. I know it's technically a magazine, they call it a clip, so deal with it. Blaster with a detachable stock that shoots a new type of dart than anything we've ever seen before, with a whole new design called the Precise Pro Darts, because they're supposed to be very, very precise or accurate, and a freaking heat-seeking scope. I don't know why I would have to say anything else about this. I mean, even if you ignored the 90-foot range claims, there's a lot on here to really, really like. This is the Thermal Hunter. And this is, of course, from BuzzBee in the Air Warriors line. And on the back of the box, it shows, well, pump action handle, 10 dart clip. See, look, they called a clip again. A clip release button, sticking with themes here, and a stock release button with a detachable stock, a rail, and a heat sensor, and all this crazy stuff. Again, for $25, and yet this is not the only thing, for we also have the Thermal Zenith, which is a pump-action 6-dart barrel rotation thing pistol that comes with the same scope, and I'm a little more excited for this one, even though it's obviously far less of a value. I mean, detachable magazines, more plastic, everything 25. This is 20. But I like the idea of this a lot more. It fits my personal playstyle more, so if you seem to align yourself with my biases, you may be more excited for this one as well. And on the back of this one, well, same thing. It shows the pump handle, trigger, rotating barrel, temperature sensor, and the temperature sensor probably claims that it can detect heat sources up to 60 feet away. Yet, of course, it shoots up to 90 feet, which is kind of interesting. There's one more blaster in this line called the Sentry, which looks vaguely similar to a BuzzBee Baron that we saw last year, just without the whole Mega Dart shooting thing. So that's really interesting for what this thing is. I've kind of played with an idea of this one, because these do come without the scopes in both the blue and white that we're seeing from BuzzBee right now. And this one comes without the scope with like a pop-up sight, but it's like the same looking blaster. I think it's still called the Zenith. It's just not called the Thermal Zenith, which this is actually like silk screened on. This is not a sticker, which is a nice thing BuzzBee has moved on to. I do appreciate that. It's really interesting. These are some pretty crazy innovations we're seeing all in one package from BuzzBee. And I'm gonna open these things up and see exactly what they can do, because, well, I'm really, really excited for this one, because not only is this a great value, but it's kind of difficult to get good pump-action clip-fed blasters. I mean, it's kind of hard to get the Nerf Elite Alpha Trooper right now, and people spend a lot of money making the Retaliators and stuff pump-action, so if this is good, then people are going to be very happy for a cheap option. You know, $25 for all this, I call that an absolute freaking steal. I mean, yeah, let's get into this. Interesting, unlike pretty much every BuzzBee blaster I've ever looked at ever, this actually came with an instructions sheet. I, again, have already kind of played with this one, so I have a vague understanding of what's going on here. But you get a lot in here. I mean, you also get a Nerf to BuzzBee rail converter, which is really interesting. So this will actually allow you to attach this to a standard Nerf rail and also use Nerf accessories with BuzzBee. Funny how that works, but we of course get the blaster here with the stock, which you can remove. It's a very, very dinky stock, and well, actually, you know what? That kind of fits my hand, just barely. That is a very, very small grip. BuzzBee, small grips. These they are for like ages 6 and up, so I get that. Trust me, I understand it, but my gosh, I mean, there are so many other blasters that actually fit people's hands. This is a bit much. And then, of course, the... there we go. The actual thermal sight itself, which is really big. It is quite massive. that might be a turn-off for some of you, although I'm already thinking there's probably ways if you wanted to modify it to make it a little bit smaller and a little more compact, but for what it does, yeah, it's gonna be pretty fairly big, and at least the viewport in it is pretty big as well. Interesting, interesting. This does take 3 AA batteries, which obviously you remove that screw right there and pop them in, which we'll get to in just a bit. And then of course the 20 Precise Pro darts, which these by themselves are like a $5 package, so yeah, you can see why they're kind of weird. They kind of slope down right there, and they have very, very squishy heads on them. But otherwise, yeah, they look pretty darn good. And it's a good thing it comes with 20, even though they only give you one 10-dart clip. So load this thing up. Let's just use a couple of these here. We got some extras, so yeah, even that's $10 in darts technically, right there. So they're really giving it to us with the value, that's for sure. All right, got that. Prime that back. Chamber 1 dart. Put the scope on there really quick just for completed effect. Yeah, that's pretty darn good. And yeah, that stock is pretty small. The grip is also pretty small, but hey, it actually works. I'm not gonna lie. I'm able to get right up in this thermal sight without any problems whatsoever, and it fires a dart pretty darn well. Let's try that one more time on camera. And does it have any kind of slam fire? No, there is no slam fire. And now I have a dart chambered in here, so I need to, there we go. All right, well, vaguely interesting. I will power up that heat-seeking scope, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but we have another blaster to open up that I am a little more excited for, the Zenith. And a very similar story here. We've got the darts, the scope, the rail converter, the blaster itself, and then there's also instructions with this one. Oh, okay. It's a little slightly bit bigger than the one that's on the Thermal Hunter. I'm talking about the grip, of course. You can directly compare these. Actually, it's almost the same thing. No, it's just slightly bit longer. It's gonna be hard to see on camera, but it actually fits my hand perfectly, and the pump is very similar to the one that's on the Barbarian. Oh my gosh, that draw! That is a very long draw, and again, no slam fire, unfortunately, which would have been good in a little pistol like this. This design is really cool. I like this little knob at the end of it. It just makes it look futuristic, and overall, that is really nice. I like that a lot. Oh, and it does have automatic return. Ooh, that's a very tight fit. That is a dart-damagingly tight fit. That is gonna destroy darts if you're not careful. The non-heat-seeking version of this actually has like a pretty cool little pop-up sight on where the rail is at. Okay. Oh, it does rotate! Well, made to make me look like a liar. Oh, and the performance on that is very nice. Alrighty, well, I'm gonna power up these scopes and go to the backyard and do a range test and show you exactly what everything is like. Alright, let's take a moment to talk about the thermal scope, or the heat-seeking scope, or whatever they want to call it now. This thing is way different than anything we've really seen before in the kind of whole optic sense in Nerf. Not that you really need an optic, but this one has a secondary function. It is thermal sensitive. I thought that was pretty obvious, but it's really, really cool. So the way this thing works is that you've got 2 buttons and a switch, an on-off switch, and then set and mode. So when it's on right now, it's just a green clip, it's a plus sign, and it's kind of faint. It's a little hard. I've tried both of mine. It's a little hard to see them. I have tried different batteries, and I couldn't really get any better performance out of them. I don't know if that's just how it's supposed to be, but it's pretty easy to see in this kind of dim, low light scenario, but if I were to step outside, you can't see anything. But it's just green. Now, I'm going to point it at the wall, and I'm going to hit set. And what that's going to do is it's going to tell it that the wall is the ambient temperature, and anything hotter than that is, well, hotter than that. So it's going to turn red. So now, as you can see, it's green. This is really, really hard to do, but it's going to be green until I get in front of it, and then it's going to turn red. And it processes extremely quickly. And it works really well. And then if you hit mode, what that's going to do is if you're, if it's too warm outside or direct sunlight and stuff like that, that is supposed to change it to a solid blue plip, which is virtually impossible to see on camera, and even in real life, it's really difficult. But now it's solid blue, it's not going to interact with anything, and if you leave your scope on, it will shut off automatically after 5 minutes, and then if you want to, you just hit mode again, and it will automatically set the second you do that, and go back to its normal heat-seeking self. Honestly, really, really cool. It updates instantly. The biggest use, I think, for something like this, and this is entirely, like, not many people are going to deal with this, but like a night HVZ game, or if you're playing in a low light environment, 60 feet's not that far, but I could just imagine having this thing as a backup just in case you pointed at a bush or something like that, and you can't easily see, but it pops up red. You would think, you'd have a chance to go, oh, it's red, there's something there, before they come out and get you. So that's really, really interesting. Is it worth the extra, like, $5 that you would pay if you get the thermal variants of the Zenith and the Thermal Hunter, or the Interceptor as the Hunter is called without the thermal stuff? Heck yes. This thing is super, super cool. And it has a big viewing angle and everything like that. I just wish it was a little bit brighter. And I'm not sure if it's just my scopes or if that's a normal thing. I vaguely remember playing with it when I was at the mod party at Captain Xavier's, and it seemed a little bit more, a little bit brighter. Even now it seems a little bit brighter. I don't know, maybe I just have to warm it up or something. Because, yeah, now it seems way brighter than it was when I first got it. Before, I couldn't see the bottom part of the plus sign or anything like that. Now it looks fine. Interesting. All right, time to the blasters, because I really want to see how these things perform. All right, Thermal Hunter time. I'm sure a lot of you will have the question of if this thing will work with Nerf magazines. Just like anything else, we're going to pop that back. And at first, it really seems like it don't. It doesn't really work all that well. However, if you pop it in there, it will work just fine. I'm not shooting any darts out of it, but take my word for it. It will work if you give it that love tap, and it will eject just fine. So this does work with no modification with a standard Nerf magazine. So I don't really know. I've seen some people say it doesn't. It totally does. We're gonna do it with this one though. Since this is the one I've loaded up, just put that in there just like you would normally. Close the breech. You do have to pull that back, of course, in order to feed a magazine into it because it has a bolt. And firing. Ooh, that is amazingly accurate. Looks like we're out. No, just failure to feed. Ooh, what's going on there? All right, completely untouched darts. Let's see how this works. Not at all is the answer to that question. What is going on here? All right, try number 3. I have cleared out the jam. Hopefully it works now. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Distance does not seem to be super great or anything like that. It seems just about what I would expect out of a blaster like this. Now, let's give the Zenith a shot. The distance appears to be about the same. Not bad, not super great either. It seems to be just about standard. I'm gonna run these things over the chronograph and see what velocities we're getting, and then we'll come to a conclusion. Alright, I ran these things over the chronograph and the results were pretty unsurprising. Now, BuzzBee stuff's kind of known for hitting hard, and these do hit harder than the standard average that we're known to use at about, the 70 mark. Well, the Thermal Hunter clocked in at around 79 average. Most shots were actually very consistent. This blaster is very, very consistent. I did have one jam with it, and that was a pain to get out because there's no access door or anything like that, and it was kind of wedged up in between where the dart tooth would be and then the barrel itself. I did manage to unjam it eventually, but it was a pain. But my gosh, was it super consistent on the chronograph and even in the firing test. These darts have very little deviation, very, very accurate. I'd love to see what they do at higher velocities, but again, maxing out at the, high 70s, I kind of wish for a little bit more, but that's still better than the average we used to get, and this overall is a very pleasant blaster. Now, I do have my issues with, of course, the small grip, which does fit my hand somewhat, although I have pretty historically small hands. Other people are going to have either, if you're a kid, you might have no issue with it, but if you're a teen or an adult, it might just be the worst thing ever. It just feels really dinky, and I wish BuzzBee would take a little more time into crafting better grips on their blasters. The pump grip has a nice texture on it, which makes it easy to grab, but there's nothing that rides your hand back here, which I really wish it did. You kind of need that on a pump because your hand just kind of slides off. You have to physically grab it pretty tightly as opposed to just loosely grabbing it and relying on something back here to direct your hand, but it does work. And again, if you're really interested in a pump action clip fed blaster, this works really good. I'm quite astounded with how good it looks and how well it performs. If you're interested in what the internals are like, it's basically a pump action champion, and I know this because of my good friend Beret. And that's a good thing, because the Champion was an awesome blaster, and this is very, very good. And for the $25 getting the stock, and then the clip, the darts, and then of course the scope and the rail adapter, that's a steal. I think that's a very, very good price point for this blaster, and it's very competitive. If you're looking like you like the pump action, you want a pump action magazine fed blaster that performs admirably, $25, and you get all of the stuff, the play value for this one is pretty darn high. The fun is definitely there. There's a lot to use, and it's overall just a really fun little gimmicky blaster. I mean, overall performance is pretty decent. There's a lot to go with it in the box. You have, of course, attachments, which people like, because that gives you a little more customization to your blaster, so there's a lot to love there. And on the competitive side of things, it's still pretty darn good. It's not going to blow you away, and the scope has little tactical use, but it is cool. And so I can definitely recommend this if you're looking for a pump action Springer that's, well, reasonably cheap. I mean, $20 for the non-scope variant or $25 for the scoped variant. I can definitely give this a recommendation. It's not going to blow you away. It performs exactly how you expect it to, but there's a lot to love. Moving on, we've got the Zenith. Now this one I like a lot more just because of my bias against, shotguns and pistols, and this is a shotgun pistol per se. So I'm very, very excited with this one. With this one, and I think this is just a quality control issue on mine, I doubt it's going to affect a lot of them. There's one dart here that doesn't really seem to want to go down. It kind of sticks up, and it's having a problem engaging correctly the air restrictor. There, I just finally got it to pop down. That's something that's fixable if you want to open it up and fix it. It's not something that should happen, but again, with something like this, it's just gonna happen. I might just have a bad one. I'm not gonna say that most of them are like that. I'm sure other reviews you can, corroborate that story if they have the same issue. But after it's fixed, thing performs, again, mid-high 70s, no problem whatsoever, a couple of 80 shots in there. It is a relatively compact and comfortable blaster. The grip is slightly bigger than the Hunter, but not enough so. It fits my hand perfectly. The biggest issue, of course, is that when I grip this thing, that's what my trigger finger is doing. I have to kind of scrunch it in there. The trigger pull is very nice, I might add, and for the fun value, it's a little bit less here, and that kind of comes to the point where it's just a pump action little pistol. The grip, the pump action is a little bit better because it does have this kind of deeper flared right there, and of course flared up here, which makes it a little more comfortable. I don't have to grip it as tightly to pump it, and it does have a spring return, which is great if your hand does slide off of it. And it's a front loader, so some people like that, and the overall profile is very, very small. It's easy to carry on you, and I love the overall look of the blaster, and the tactical rail is there for your included thermal scope. The biggest problem I have with this thing is that at $20, that's less good of a price point. I know why they did it, because it included that thermal scope, but even the non-thermal scope versions are pretty expensive. For 10, 12, maybe a maximum of 15, I can highly recommend this thing. It's not the most fun blaster ever. I'm not going to go out there and say, oh my god, you should totally get this, it's super fun. But as a competitive user, if you're wanting something that's tiny, compact secondary that you can rattle off shots pretty effortlessly with, and then top it up when you need to, it's an excellent sidearm, and I do happen to really like it. So yeah, this one scores a bit higher on the just usability scale, because there's really not a whole lot like this in the competitive scene. A pump action pistol that performs admirably, and while I haven't opened this one up myself, I have seen some people mod them already, and they are wicked cool. Seriously. And of course you just have to do an easy rebarrel and stuff like that. I'm very excited. You'll probably see this one again in the future, because I happen to be a big fan of this, but of course I'm biased against that kind of stuff, and that's something that you have to kind of realize when I'm doing my reviews. I have my biases here and there. Both blasters are pretty excellent in my opinion. I happen to like the Zenith more, but that price point is a little harder to make this a recommendation. It does feel very, very solid in the hand. There is no give anywhere on this plastic. Overall, it looks great. It's just, yeah, for the $20, even if you get the non-thermal variant, what I think is like 18 or 17, I don't know, man. I really don't know if I can recommend this that hard, but I happen to like it a lot, and you will see this blaster in the future. It will be a regular mainstay in my arsenal, because it is really nice. Let me know what you think about the Thermal Hunter and Thermal Zenith down in the comments section below. I'd love to get your feedback on this thing if you have any great ideas. I saw some wicked cool ideas from the Barbarian video, things I didn't really even touch on in the video, that I love it when you guys do that stuff, so please keep it up. Give me your suggestions. Some of them are just pure gold, and you never know if I might take one of those and make it into a reality. So, I mean, there was lots of different ways the Barbarian could go, and I'm really interested to see what you guys say about this kind of stuff. I'm Walcom S7. Thank you very much for watching this video, and of course I hope to see you in an entirely different one.